All right, we seem to be live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm just going to verify that fact before we get started to make sure everything is working as it should. So good morning to anybody who is going to be watching us this morning on the Moundville Archaeological Park Facebook page. That's a lot of words. And we are also live on the UA Museum's YouTube channel. So if you prefer to watch on YouTube, you definitely can do that. So it does look like we're on live on the Facebook page. Let me see if I can verify that. Yep, it looks like we're live on YouTube, so we're all good to go. So I guess I will get us started. Welcome to today's Museums from Your Home live stream presented by the University of Alabama Museums. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I am the Communication Specialist for UA Museums. And joining me for a discussion about the new Moundville Park Pavilion down at Moundville Archaeological Park are the Director of Moundville Archaeological Park, Dr. Alex Benitez. And I think John Newman is over there with you, who is the Maintenance Shop Supervisor at Moundville Archaeological Park. And
Yes.
Joining us today is the Rural Studio team that is building the Park Pavilion down there. Emily, Katie, Lauren, and Sarah. Welcome to the live stream, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see y'all this morning. So I guess the best way to get us started is to remind everybody that we're live. Anything can happen. So just hang in there with us in case Facebook or YouTube has any issues or we have any issues. So just hang in there with us in case anything goes wrong. We hope nothing will, but this is live. So just keep that in mind. And so I guess now that we've gotten all that business out of the way, I guess the best way to get started is to hand it over to you guys and let you take us through the project. So Lauren, are we starting with you?
Yes.
All right.
So we're going to pull up a presentation for you guys just to give you a little bit of background story first, and we'll start kind of talking about Rural Studio and then deeper dive into our project and then open up the floor to questions that you guys might have. So to begin with, a lot of you guys might not know what Rural Studio is. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties. And it was a studio. We're actually associated with Auburn University. Sorry for the rivalry, but we're part of the Auburn Architecture program. So we're an off-campus program based in New Bern, Alabama. This image shows downtown New Bern. It's about 45 minutes south of Moundville, about an hour south of Tuscaloosa. A smaller community. It's a population of about 180 people. This is the downtown area, as I stated, and that red building barn structure is actually the studio that the students have been working out of for the past few years. The studio started in 1993 and was originally just kind of a bunch of students in a truck. It started out as an educational model to give students a hands-on experience designing and building a project, which is something that's pretty rare and unique for architecture students to kind of get that knowledge of how they're actually going to build what they drew on paper. It was also a way to reach out and serve and become invested within a community. The original projects were mainly housing projects that used a lot of recycled material, particularly in the beginning of the studio. It was working with very limited budgets to try to do a lot with few materials. And these are some of the first houses that were built. From there, the studio expanded to do a lot of community projects as well. This is the New Bern Fire Station that was completed in 2004, which was the first new public building in New Bern in over 100 years. So it was pretty important to the community. Before the construction of the project, a lot of homeowners actually couldn't receive insurance because there was no fire station nearby that could help them in the case of a fire. So they had a really hard time getting insurance. So this became a really important project, both as one of the first community buildings that the studio has done and for the town of New Bern. From there, they also built the town hall. These are all downtown New Bern, so it's actually across the street from the Red Barn, which is the studio that you saw earlier. The town hall was pretty important as a gathering space and also the first place that was dedicated to people voting in New Bern. So this is where the entire town comes to vote. And it used a local material, cypress, which was also really important to the success of the project. They also built a library in 2013. So all of these projects that I've shown you have been projects such as ours that are built by 4 people. It's a thesis team. So it's 4 fifth-year students that spend their thesis year designing and then actually stay on past to volunteer to build, which we'll talk a little bit more in the future in the presentation. This is the interior of the library, which was a really important place because it was one of the only places that a lot of people could get Wi-Fi in the town of New Bern, and still is for a lot of people. And they host a lot of after-school activities and tutoring here as well. From there, the studio started doing a lot of park projects. So this isn't our first, or the studio's first experience working within the context of a park or a natural setting. This is a Perry Lakes Pavilion project that was completed in Marion County in Perry Lakes Park. So this is kind of something that we've studied a lot and really looked at in the design of the pavilion for Moundville. They also completed a park in Lions Park. This is in Greensboro. So this was actually a multi-phase project. So multiple teams of students came in and did a series of master plans and then built signage and walkways. There's a playground and a baseball field. So this is something that we also really looked at in the design of the pavilion for Moundville because it works within a larger concept and a larger park and scale. And then this is the Boys and Girls Club, which is built actually about 2 minutes down the road from the Perry Lakes Park. And this project kind of shows that Rural Studio isn't just something that comes in and builds a project, but really we're pretty invested in Hale County. As you can see this project, all the students still come back and tutor. So all of the Rural Studio students, not all of them tutor here. We tutor at another location too, but a lot of students come back to the Boys and Girls Club to tutor, which is just really important for the studio and for us to kind of invest where we are in the place that we're in. So today, Katie and Sarah are going to talk a little bit more specifically about our project. And then at the end, if you have any more questions about Rural Studio and just kind of the design process, we can answer those.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. So we are the Moundville Community Pavilion team. I'm Katie, and then online with me is Emily, Sarah, and Lauren. And these are our incredible clients. We have Alex Benitez, who is the park director, John Newman, the facilities manager, and Christy Taylor, who is our community advocate. And we all work together to design and build this community pavilion. So we thought it was really important to understand where we're building. This is Moundville Archaeological Park. It's located in Moundville, Alabama. And then specifically the context of the campground, which is where the pavilion will be built physically and is currently in construction. So to better understand the place that we're building, we thought it was imperative to do some research on the place, research on the people. So on your left of the screen is an axon drawing of what we imagine Moundville would have looked like in about 1300 AD. So what you're seeing to orient you on the bottom of the screen is the Black Warrior River. It's like that little swoosh down there. Yeah, Sarah's showing you. Thank you. And then if you've been to Moundville before, you'll be familiar with Mound B. It's the mound that you can climb. It's the tallest one in the park, and it's just above Black Warrior River in both drawings. So on the left, we have Moundville in 1300 AD showing the plaza and the mound structures, which were highly residential and ceremonial. They exist in relation to a family hierarchy. So basically a family would build on a plot of land, and when the head of the family passed away, they would burn the house with the family member in it, cover that with a layer of dirt, and then build again. So the height of the mound is related to family status. And then on the right, you're looking at an axon drawing of the park as it exists today. So again, to orient you, the Black Warrior River is in the same place on this drawing, and then Mound B is also in the same place. But some key features that you can point out is the ring road, which goes around the park, and the railroad. So to overlay the two on top of each other, you can see again that the palisade wall is a very important archaeological piece of Moundville in its ancient era, and then the ring road is an additional modern structure. So in both of these drawings, you can see if you look at the top right corner, there's a red square. That's the campground of the park. If you're familiar with it, you've probably driven back there. It's really beautiful, highly worth the trip. And that's where the pavilion is going to be built. So we wanted to focus more on the community, the people who live there, and the history of the place, the park and its history, and then the immediate site. So to further investigate the community and the place of Moundville, we had to go back about 1,000 years to when it was settled by the Native Americans. So to orient you on these maps at the top of your screen, the Black Warrior River is in white, and then the Palisade Wall, which existed around the Native American community, goes, yes, exactly right there. And then all of the mounds are highlighted in black, and the site for the pavilion is highlighted in red in all of those drawings. So Moundville was a thriving metropolis for about 500 years, and then towards the end of its existence, there was disease and overforestation, which led the Native Americans to move out of Moundville. And then the academic history is lost for a very similar amount of time. So it's about 1,000 years in total before Moundville is academically studied again. During that time, in between Moundville being a Native American metropolis and as it exists today, a lot of the information was lost. In one of those images, you can see that it has trees growing on the mounds and it was pillaged and row cropped. It's just got such a deep history. Moving forward, Moundville City was founded because there's a railroad that runs from New Orleans to New York and a city clustered around that railroad. Yes, exactly. And then in 1910, Carthage was found, which is what Moundville was originally called. And then moving forward in 1930, Walter B. Jones purchased the site for academic study for the University of Alabama. And then moving back to 2020, you can see that the Highway 69 was founded and a lot of the infrastructure moved out to meet the highway. Okay, and then we wanted to focus on who lives in Moundville today, because that's a really important part of this pavilion and what it's going to do. So we devised a survey and we went to a Hale County High School football game and we surveyed 160 people in the greater Moundville area. And we asked them some questions like, what would make the park more usable? And would you host an event in the park? And a lot of that information was really helpful when we were doing the design of the pavilion to make sure that we were serving the needs of the community that exists in Moundville today. Some of the information we found was that more than 50% of the people we talked to use the park more than once a month. So we were really excited at the idea that this was a backyard to the residents of Moundville. People care about this place, they use it all the time, and it's just a wonderful resource that we're really excited to provide another additional resource within. So on the left, you're seeing Moundville as a park, which is this massive expanse of grass that's lined by a thick forest edge, and it just creates this beautiful space. And then on the right, you're seeing the contrast to this, which is the campground and the immediate site where the pavilion will be constructed, which is a different experience because you're in that tree line. So moving into the plan of the park, the gray outline is showing that thick tree line that I was explaining earlier. And then at the top of your screen is the Black Warrior River. You can also see the ring road that circles the park, and then some of the amenities of the park on the right of your screen, like the admissions building, Mound B, the Black Warrior River, and the museum. In the immediate context of the site and the campground, you can see two thresholds of trees that create an interior room condition in between those tree lines, which is the area that we'll be designing in and something that we used as a design feature in the design of the pavilion. So after understanding a lot about the site and the place, we move forward to designing the actual pavilion structure. We started doing that by just exploding out every idea we could possibly imagine for what the structure could be. We did drawings, we did models, we had a lot of meetings with Alex, John, and Christy to help decide what we wanted to do with this structure and with this space. We also had a lot of designs in studio where we were fortunate enough to have a lot of people come and visit and give us their opinion on how we could create a useful space for the park. And then that led us to the actual design of the structure and what you could see today if you were to go out to Moundville and look at the construction. Basically, what the structure is doing is on the left, you're seeing the ceiling plane where you would enter at a high point, be compressed by a low ridge, and then spat out into the forest and the fireplace, two areas that we think are absolutely beautiful. The roof is doing the opposite for water and pine needles, and then those are combined to create a diamond shape, which is what we were creating in the form. So this is the form of the pavilion. Again, you can see that you're entering at a high corner and then you're moving out back under a low ridge and into another high corner. So after we developed the form of the pavilion, we had a structural engineer come and help us understand how we could build this out of wood. The park generously donated a lot of wood for this project, so we wanted to make sure that we used it efficiently and thoughtfully. And this is a diamond-shaped diagonal ridge truss structure that helped us to create that diamond shape out of a wood pavilion. So we tested that, or we created these models that helped us understand how that space would work. So basically what you're seeing is that there's a middle truss that's a diamond shape, and then it mirrors on both sides to create these two high corners and two low corners. We tested the pavilion structurally with a method, again, by our structural engineer. So what you're looking at is that same model that we just showed on the last slide that has 16 points of pressure that are scaled down so that when our friend Jake stands on a pivot arm, he is distributing about 70% of his weight here onto the model, which is scaled to predict what the model would do under actual stress in full scale. And then these are some spatial sketches of what the anticipated pavilion will do in the space. So again, you're seeing this high corner on entry. And then you are seeing the low ridge, which is compressing you and helping you to focus again towards the high corner, towards the forest, and towards the fireplace that already exists on the site today. And this is looking from the fireplace and the existing slab back towards the pavilion. And then Sarah's going to walk you through some of our construction.
So after we had completed the design and worked with our 2 different structural engineers, we had worked with Anderson, who helped us with the model tests, and then Joe, who had helped us with running the numbers. We started to get out of the ground. So our first goal was to pour foundations and to start putting up columns. And so since this is an archaeological site, we wanted to do our due diligence. So as Katie had said earlier, our site was originally located outside of the palisade wall. So that was very intentional, hoping that we wouldn't find any artifacts and disturb the area in any way. But we worked with our clients, Alex and John, to do some tests in strategic places throughout the site. And documented everything we found and then reported it to the archaeological board, which allowed us to move forward, seeing that the site was already disturbed. So with supervision, we were able to hand dig our footings on site. And even though we did have that go-ahead, we wanted to make sure that the structural design and the aesthetic design were both very sensitive to the context of where we were. So when working with Joe, our engineer, and even originally, we wanted to make sure that these footings were sensitive. So we have the smallest footprint that we could do structurally, so we're disturbing a very small amount of ground. And then we aesthetically have a very delicate connection to the site with having these 2 metal fins come up and receive the bottom of the columns. So we started sketching that, and we moved into more precise AutoCAD drawings, and then we're eventually able to construct it on site. So when moving forward in construction, we did a set of shop drawings and then had our steel footings fabricated. And then we used the wood that the park had donated to construct the columns and then the trusses. And then we moved everything to site and started raising the structure. So you can see the footings, this is where we were, and then the steel coming out of the ground. And then we placed the columns on top of that and then have boxes here to receive the trusses. So we moved all the trusses to site, and then we got ready for truss raising day, which I think we can all agree was the most exciting and terrifying day of our lives. So we ended up raising all 5 trusses in one day. So we had them all on site, and then we put the straps on them, and we had our boom truck guy in the back from West Alabama Mechanical, and we lifted them and then placed them on top of the columns. And so that is a bypass system. So our columns feed in through the trusses and then came out the top. So we ended up finishing the day with all 5 trusses up. So then after we had the main core structure raised on site, we started working on all of the framing of that. So we put in all of our edge beams because we were looking at making this crazy section of structure into something that resembled a rectangle. So we had all of our edge beams placed in, and our ridge beams placed in, and then we started finding all of these crazy angles. So a lot of these 2x12s were sistered together, and then they ended up being sloped and skewed cuts. So we got familiar with our skill saw and became pretty good carpenters, just by trial and error, learning to make all of those cuts. So after we finished putting in the X bracing and making sure that the trusses were perfectly parallel, we had scaffolding assembled on site so that we could get up into the structure and continue working. So the next step was putting in joists. So we started with our roof joists and assembling them just bay by bay, board by board. And then here you can see them hitting the ridge beam and then finishing that last section. And then we started putting in ceiling joists. And our ceiling joists need to be a little bit more precise because we were planning on putting the cladding directly onto that. So we learned from the roof joists and got our process nailed down. And then we put in the ceiling joists, which we were able to do with quite a bit of precision. And then we ended up framing that bottom ridge so that we made sure we had a really crisp line running against the bottom of the pavilion. And then the last thing we've actually done on site is frame our corners with the fascia. So the structure goes from being this 8 feet on the middle diamond truss and then goes to a 4-inch edge. And so how we've accomplished that thin razor sharp edge is having our 2x12 edge beams and then having a plywood wedge attached onto that, and then having our fascia 2x4 board run along all of those wedges. So that was quite an interesting process of a lot of trial and error to be able to figure out how to combine all of these angles into a single plywood sheet. But it's looking pretty good right now. So this is the current state of the pavilion, what it would look like if you drove around the campground now. We have all of our scaffolding still up, and we have everything framed with the wedges on, and then we have our corners framed. So since we have the whole structure up, the next step will be cladding it. So we were able to use it as a model to test a lot of things. And we've done mock-ups through the whole process. But this is just one of our most recent mock-ups of the ceiling cladding and how we would detail that around a column. And so this is one of our earlier renderings about what we think that will look like. So having the crisp line along the bottom ridge and then just having that cladding, that's a dispersed pattern of multiple 1x boards of different dimensions, and then just with it, that column sliding past it, and then having that delicate connection to the ground. So throughout the process, we've had a great design build experience where we moved from testing these models to actually seeing the full scale item built. So we really enjoyed it. So Rebecca, do we want to open up to some questions at this
point? If
point?
Alex has any closing comments as well.
I don't have any questions. I don't know. Maybe one of the things to sort of bring up is just that this has been a wonderful process for us, and just seeing how much work you put into it just from the presentation is overwhelming, and it's really impressive. I know y'all have given everything, to make this contribution to the park and to future visitors. So that's been great for us. One thing I was asked to do is to talk about how this all began, and there's just this, as with so many things related to Moundville and the project, it's just all, it's an interesting story, and it was just this quirky way that things sort of develop, and it was a lot of contact, but y'all probably know this, that, I became familiar with Rural Studio, and please take this the right way. I became familiar with Rural Studio when I and one of our program assistants were at a meeting at the conference center, and on our old bins out in the park, there's a little tag on there that says, project of the Hale-Bopp Comets and Rural Studio. And I said to our former program assistant, I said, Angel, hey, who do you know what these are? And he got all excited about Rural Studio. And this is Angel Narvaez Lugo, who should get some credit for, keeping us sort of on to this possibility of having Rural Studio work with us. So Angel actually pursued it afterwards, and he said, you got to see what they did. And so we looked at the website, we saw everything Rural Studio did. I had no idea that y'all were based in Hale County or what y'all had done, but the projects that were on your website were just phenomenal. And we thought, this is a great potential project for Rural Studio. We needed this community space and something to take the place of where our former education outreach coordinator used to live in one of the campground spots. So it was just sort of this natural fit. But our first thought was, it's Auburn. How's this going to work? And will they want to come out here? And so there was some hesitation there, but we met with some of your staff. Javier, I guess, came out first and met with us and was super excited about the project. So we thought maybe this would happen. And it took about a year after that, but soon we were meeting with the director, and then we met y'all that summer. It was summer of what is it now? 18.
2018.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience since then. And I will say this too, from our end of things, we were asked to pull together a sort of a consulting team, a client team, and I pulled in John Newman, our maintenance supervisor, in large part because he would be responsible for the structure. He had invested a lot in the campground already, and making that a more user-friendly space. And we had a lot of renovations kind of ongoing there with our bathhouse and our infrastructure. So this was kind of a natural fit. And John had a lot of experience with these kinds of structures. And then we brought in Christy Taylor, who's on our board of regents, because Christy is an important member of the Moundville community. Her family's been here for a very long time, and she's really interested in connecting us to the community a lot more than maybe we have been recently. So it was just a great team. I think working with y'all was fantastic. We all enjoyed it, and we're just constantly amazed at not just what you're able to do, but how y'all have been able to transition or think. I mean, it was a constantly changing project, and I think we offered you challenges, but then also, y'all brought to us some of the new ideas. The design was always changing. The design was never static, and I think that made it exciting because we never knew, how it was going to get better, but it always did. And that was pretty fun to see. So. We thank y'all for it. That's kind of how we all got connected. And I think, if we want to take some questions, maybe that would be great.
Well, I have a question for the Rural Studio ladies. So when you first came to Moundville Archaeological Park, what were your first impressions? I guess, Emily, let's start with you.
I guess it was in the fall of 2018 when we do workshops at the very beginning of the school year, and it was all 12 of us of our class coming out, and it was a hot day for sure. But I remember going over those train tracks. We really had I hadn't at least heard of it, and I had no idea where we were going. We were just following the GPS, and we went over those train tracks, and I was like, where am I? Like, it's such a crazy experience the first time you enter the park, because it's unlike anything that I've ever seen. I'm from Florida, so it's pretty flat around here. So seeing the mounds and just something completely different was incredible. And then taking a tour of the park that day was just such a neat experience, and getting to climb up Mound B and see the beautiful vista you can see from up there.
Sara, do you have a favorite place at Moundville, like any of the mounds or the museum? Is there a place that you found that you connected to when you were at the park?
I think just being in the center of the plaza, like after we had been there for a while, so we had been conducting lots of research and had been to the museum and been able to tour the archaeological lab and gotten to know the people who live there, and some of the people from the Native American community who still come back to the place. But being able to stand there and understand the history of the place and be able to still be in that landscape, it's incredible that space has been preserved for this huge amount of time. So just being able to stand there and be able to kind of take all that in was pretty incredible.
And Katie, I have a question for you. You talked about the research that y'all did with the Moundville community and the survey that you did.
Yeah.
So what do you think was not the most important aspect of your research, but what did you think was the most maybe helpful for what you all were doing? Was it the survey? Was it talking to the Moundville team? Was it interacting with the people there? What do you think was the most helpful that informed what you guys did?
I think that what was the most impactful for me personally was starting to understand how people really did use the space as a backyard. We had been told that when we got the project, but getting to go out and talk to 160 people and have a resounding, absolutely, yes, we love this place, we use it all the time. And then being able to see people walking around, like that was a really exciting element to work with, that people love this place and we could provide something that made it even better.
Yeah, y'all are taking the campground and really making it really special with that pavilion. So Lauren, what do you think? Because y'all have gone out there and you camped in the campground. So what did you what did you get out of that experience about actually camping in the place where y'all are building this pavilion?
Yeah, we got to camp, I guess it was last spring, maybe. It was a little too early for camping, I'd say. We were pretty cold. But one thing we really saw and got to do is that was the first time that we, I think, walked fully around the park multiple times. So we had driven around, we had stopped at the parking lots and gotten out and done stuff, but that was the first time that we literally walked across the plaza, walked across the ring road or around the ring road, and did the boardwalks and back through the river and all. And we got a chance to do that before the park really got busy, before things opened. We watched the sunrise, as John recommended for us to do, which was incredible, with some mist over the mounds. Kind of takes you to a different place for sure. It's a very different experience. But I think for us, getting to see everything that the park had to offer, because we understood that there were so many different people who used the park and there was so much happening. But then to really get to experience all of that was really impactful for us as a team, I think, and me personally.
Yeah, it's cool that you get to actually experience what other people are going to experience when they enjoy the space that you're building.
Right.
So Alex, what has it been like for y'all as the Moundville folks to work with these ladies, and what's been your favorite? Do you have like a favorite moment or a favorite day that you all experienced together through this process?
I think I said it a second ago. I think every time that we met to get an update on design or questions, it was just we always say, we're surprised and overwhelmed by how much they could actually see this park differently. And it was such an important thing for me as a director to be able to have this journey with them and how to see the park differently. And I think that happened constantly. Every time we met, John and I would have conversations about, we didn't see it that way. Oh, that's great. We need to do that. We've had some crazy ideas thrown at us by these ladies who just see the park differently. And now we think, you know what, that may be the way to go. Like, you just have to experience the park differently than, the way you do when you work here. And I think they've given us a vision that we haven't had before, but we're excited and we've bought into completely. So there's a lot of things I think that will come out of this that will, follow the pavilion in terms of how we want to do things here. So I would say, those moments have been really priceless for us in learning.
It looks like Alex might have frozen.
And I do want to say one other thing too.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. It froze a little bit, but you look like you're back.
Okay. What I wanted to say is that one of the things I glossed over earlier is the importance of this pavilion and why we're doing it. I mentioned why it's in that location, but really, if you haven't gotten it out of what they've said today, certainly, it's what Rural Studio is all about, which is giving back to the community and particularly Hale County. So for us, we called it a community pavilion in large part because it's for our community, local folks, but also, we had a need in the park for our larger events. We do our festivals, 4-day festival in the fall. We get a lot of Native American folks who come out and help us teach the public about, contemporary Native cultures. And they use the campground a lot, but there wasn't a community space for them when they come here to do that. So it had multiple purposes. This pavilion, really it's an incredible contribution to the park and And we took a lot of care in putting it where it was, as they've explained. And it's been, it's a great resource for us. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say that, the pavilion, in addition to being important for recreation, is also an important potential education space for us. And we wanted to make sure that that was a part of it. So we gave them a lot to think about. They took it all in and gave us this wonderful, wonderful structure that we're going to be excited to open.
Yeah, it's nice to have a fresh perspective and some new sets of eyes who come into Moundville and experience it in definitely a new way. Is John around?
He's lurking over here.
Does he want to hop on in here and share his perspective of the project?
Sure. You want to? He said he'll pop on in a little bit.
Okay. What from the rural studio perspective, what were some of y'all talked about the trusses that were going up and how that was a big deal? Were there other challenges that you guys had to overcome that you were really proud of, that in addition to that you wanted to tell people about, that made you better architects?
One big thing that's kind of an internal hurdle that every thesis project team goes through at Rural Studios, we have to do something called a stress test, which is really important as a checkpoint with progress of the project, and also for us and our.
Might have lost Lauren a little bit. There you're back.
We're back.
Yeah. You were talking about a stress test.
Yes. So it's kind of a time when we present all of our working knowledge of the project. We present the history, the research, our design, the structure, and how we plan to construct it and continue on. So that's a big presentation for us, and it's kind of a big step for the studio as well, because it's the time where the clients, Auburn University, the studio, and our team is all kind of put onto the same page of this is kind of what we're predicting. And that's kind of when we get the green light from Auburn to go ahead and build, because they take building very seriously. So Andrew, the director of Rural Studio, always says that it's a right you have to earn. So that's kind of a big hurdle for us. That's more of an internal studio thing that we go through, of just earning that right and proving that we do have a handle on the structure and what we need to do to get our design completed. And that, I think, for us was a really big one.
Mm-hmm. So for anybody else, what are some things that you're most proud of with this project?
I think something probably all of us are proud of, I guess, is getting that crazy thing framed finally. Something that's definitely going to probably haunt us in our careers is learning the lesson that there's definitely consequences of every line you draw. We knew what we were getting into with this crazy form, but some days when we were out there framing it, we were like, what on earth have we backed ourselves into? Because kind of how Katie and Sarah showed you guys earlier, we built tons of models and we knew there was going to be some crazy stuff ahead of us. But just knowing that there is some person out there one day that's going to have to build everything, and they might not be as patient as we were. So just knowing there's an impact on what you've designed has been a good thing to learn, but also that everything is possible.
So what was it like working with the Moundville team, with Alex and John and anybody else that you guys worked with down there? You got to know them a little bit. So what was it like to work down at Moundville with these folks?
And I'm still here.
Yeah, Alex is
they're still alive. So
it was a really incredible experience, just because everyone had a different background and we're coming from a different place, and so they were able to bring so much information to the table, and they were just so supportive and open the whole time about they listened to any of our wild hair ideas, but also helped us steer the project in a really productive direction. So, and we've enjoyed getting to know them professionally and working with them, but also they've become great friends as we've been out there living and working in Moundville. So became more like colleagues and friends towards the end. So it's been great.
That's really cool. And sorry, was someone else?
We got to present to the Board of Regents, and we also got our design passed through the Native American hands and their board And that was also a very rewarding experience, being able to present to people that are influential in the city of Moundville, and then people that still treat this place as a very culturally important icon and civilization. So that was also extremely rewarding. Outside of loving our clients and everything that we've done with them, that was another experience that was really beneficial and wonderful.
Did you mention the city council also?
Oh, no, I didn't mention that, but we also got to present to the city council.
And I guess that leads to a good question about the Native American aspect of this. What have y'all learned about the Native American culture or the history of Moundville that you take away from this, and how did it impact how you all built the structure?
I mean, I think we've gotten many layers of learning about that aspect of the park because we've met the people that come to the festivals and the Nappins, and we've gotten to know them. Particularly, you know, the regular visitors of Moundville that are Native American heritage or still carry on the traditions. So there's been a real personal aspect to that, but we also had the opportunity to tour the archaeological lab. And that was also a really incredible experience that we got to see that academic aspect of the fact that that's an active archaeological site that they're still studying today that has produced so many important artifacts and understanding the culture of Moundville and Native Americans. So I think for us, we would say that just getting kind of the behind the scenes of that in both of those aspects has been really important.
Yeah, and I sort of want people to know about y'all that you not only are building something at Moundville and have been, you know, focused on that, but you're also participating in the things that Moundville does and that UA Museums does. And I really appreciate that about y'all because you volunteered at the Native American Festival and helped us out that whole weekend with all of that, what that was, you know, about and what was going on. So I really personally appreciate y'all having taken ownership of not only the project, but have participated in what we do. And so I think that's really, really cool of you all, because I guess we're sort of dancing around the sort of that this may be a little bit of a pun, the elephant in the room, that you all are from Auburn University and Moundville Archaeological Park is part of the University of Alabama. And so there is that rivalry aspect, but there doesn't necessarily have to be. And I don't think from the way you all talk, it doesn't seem like that really impacts your partnership with Moundville. And so I guess, do we want to talk about that aspect of it? Emily, do you think that there is a big rivalry that has to be overcome when you work with the University of Alabama?
I think the only snafu we've had is when John wrote "Roll Tide" in one of our competitions. So we're never going to get that. But no, other than that, I think at least to me, it's been fine so far. We haven't really ever had any troubles, and we've honestly gotten to love the city of Tuscaloosa so much and think of it as a second home. And I think that the football and basketball and all sports are important in the rivalry. But in terms of this, I think the rivalry can be set aside.
So I'm curious, since you mentioned Tuscaloosa, are there any places in Tuscaloosa that you've all enjoyed getting to experience?
Yes, many. We like to go up there to eat dinner sometimes to treat ourselves when we're sick of cooking. We really like Avenue Pub. And Lusa's the bar area thing. It's not a brewery, but actually John and a lot of the park people introduced us to that place, and it's pretty cool. So you guys in Tuscaloosa, when the pandemic is over, should check that out.
And I will add, we've even gotten stuff donated from the University of Alabama, which I think is important to mention. We had all of our concrete and a good bit of our gravel so far donated, working with the facilities there. So that's been really important to our team and helps us in unimaginable ways to kind of keep our funds low, but also have other areas to spend on other things. So that's been really important for us.
And so what has it been like from the perspective of Auburn University? Did they have any hesitancy about working with the University of Alabama?
Well, can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
So the director at Real Studio and I have had some conversations about this, and we really look at it as sort of an example of how, you know, these two quote unquote rival institutions can work together in this kind of collaborative way, and how we can sort of give to each other. You know, we provide, at least the park provided an opportunity for this kind of project to take place in really a unique environment. And so we provided them certain challenges, I think, in materials, but also location, that I think were, you know, part of the learning process. But then on our side of it, you know, what a great thing to have a rival institution contribute to the park, you know, something that we can provide to the community. So it's I think, you know, we joke about it, but it's been really important to have that to show that, you know, that we are just all of Alabama. You know, we are, we represent the state in our own unique ways, and we have this rivalry, but that we can kind of work together in a really, really important, good way. I see there's a comment up from Christy, so I don't know if y'all see that, but awesome. She was an important part of a super important part of the project. Still is.
Yeah, I've personally been very impressed with what you all have done and have overcome the rivalry hurdles, because I know people looking from the outside in would probably notice that and talk about that. But you all have done such a good job of just embracing what Moundville's about and doing what you can to help out with the park. So were there any, do you have any favorite memories of being out in Moundville, or any favorite days along with the project that sort of stick out into your mind when you think about what you all have been doing there?
It's been lots of good days.
What do you count as a good day?
When everything goes well. When John and Alex come to visit, they come by site a lot just to say hi and catch up. It was great because the clients, they were always so accessible. So anytime we were testing something new, they'd stop by and we could talk about it and look at it in real time. So that was always really great.
Mm-hmm. And I will add too that, you know, that this was such a successful project that we really are looking at, you know, partnerships for other projects we have in the park, and we have a lot of structures that can be renovated. So, you know, they've really set the bar pretty high for potentially future Real Studio students who may work at the park. But I will say that, you know, the campground is always going to be unique. It's probably the only project construction on our site that will happen, and who knows how, you know, how many years, but it was really a unique opportunity. But we do hope that it will, the partnership will continue, because it's really been a great experience for us. And I think our visitors will really get a lot out of it. It's going to be a wonderful space, and we hope they come back, you know, when they're off being, you know, architects changing the world, as Christy said, that they'll come back to Moundville and enjoy their pavilion, at least.
Yeah, to kind of add to what Sara said, I mean, you guys give us a lot of credit, but we wouldn't have made it through a lot of days without the visitors we got. And we really feel like the park adopted us kind of in a way. Like Wayne and Belle made us meals. Lindsay brought us hot hands for the coolest days. John's mom, Rosa, comes by with donuts all the time. It's responsible for most of our weight gain. So just like the little things like that they show up somehow at the times when we need them most. We'll be having like the worst time, and I think they know there's some kind of telepathy. And they'll show up with donuts, and we'll forget what the issue was. And so that's been really just amazing from our perspective of we wouldn't have been able to do what we did without that kind of support from both the park and the whole community. I mean, we go out to eat at the Mexican restaurant and the barbecue restaurant and Pam's, and everybody is so kind to us if they recognize us or they ask us why we're carrying around drawings and things of that nature. So that's been really important and really incredible to be a part of and to feel so invested in.
Mm-hmm. And I think just want to add on to that a little bit, getting to meet some of the campers, I think was something I at least never expected would happen. But everyone has been so friendly that stays in the park, and a lot of them just stroll on over and are like, "Hey, what's up? What you doing?" And it's really fun to be able to explain it to a whole new set of ears. Get to talk someone else's ear off for once instead of poor Alex and John. Everyone's always just so positive, and it's always a really nice pick me up. So.
Yeah, I'm personally really passionate about telling people that you can camp at Moundville. I want everyone to know that you can do that. And so what you all are doing to add to that campground experience, I think, is really important. And one thing I was personally curious about is that you all have done such a good job of documenting everything that you have done since day one. So was that something that Rural Studio encourages you all to do, or was that something that you just took upon yourself to do for your own purposes?
I definitely think that's something that's ingrained in us from day one of architecture school, is document every single thing that you do so you can explain the design process and also like explain your work and understand it yourself. But yeah, so ever since then, but the studio has definitely encouraged us to document our work, and we're currently working on making a book to explain everything. So like pulling from all the presentations we've given to multiple different groups and putting together photos, drawings, any type of explanation, just to be able to fully document this entire experience. So
a book. I knew you guys had a blog. I didn't know you were working on a book. That's awesome.
A lot of Rural Studio projects kind of compile one in the end. And something that's notable about the studio and why it's so successful is that it's a growing body of knowledge. Andrew always says that you're not kind of designing in a vacuum. You have all of these things that have been built and tested before you. So that's something that's really important with the studio, and that's been incredible for our process to be able to have all of these past projects to go and look at to inform what we're doing.
So we definitely pulled from past projects when we were first getting started. So we looked at other park projects and other community projects and just saw what their process was like. And so sometimes we pulled ideas to reuse that they had started with. So it's great to add to that body of knowledge and just to share.
Yeah, that must be cool to look back and see where you started from to where you are now, to see that progress that you've made throughout the project. Well, we have about 8 minutes left, so I wanted to give you all the last word about the project, and if there's anything else that that you want people to know about what you're doing, or about the Pavilion, or about Moundville. So I guess we'll go around our little window here. So Emily, I'll start with you. What are your final thoughts you want to leave people with about the Pavilion project or Moundville?
That's a lot of pressure. I would say if you haven't been to Moundville, you should definitely come. It's, having worked there every day for a lot of days now, and also living nearby, it has just such a special place in my heart, and I think all of our hearts. And I think if you're local or semi-local, you should just come and visit, because it is such a cool place. Obviously, you can see the Pavilion when it's finished, so that's a plus. But besides that, I think if you haven't experienced the park, you should come. If you have experienced the park, you should come again, because it's even more awesome every time you go. So,
Sara, what are your final thoughts that you want to leave people with?
I guess just say thank you to all the people in Moundville who've helped us along the way. We've had so many consultants who have we've met through Rural Studio, who have just shared a wealth of knowledge and donated their time to us. And also, just as reiterating what Lauren and Emily has said about the community, just being so welcoming and giving a level of trust to us as we are students and young professionals taking our first steps out into the design world. So they've just been so confident and trusting in our abilities, and let us become a part of this community, as you were talking about. So they didn't just like come in and ask us, okay, what you got, and then make us do it and send us on our way, but really let us come and observe how they use these spaces and what it means to them. So I think that's made all the difference. The design would have been completely different if we wouldn't have been able to be a part of this group of people. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I hope that that's something I can continue doing throughout my career. So I know we all do.
Katie, what are your thoughts that you want to leave people with about the Pavilion project or your experience in Moundville?
I am so grateful for this project, for my team, for the clients, and for this place. I have never become so invested in the history of a place in my entire life. It's fascinating. It's incredible. I think it needs to be taught way more often in schools. I'm so disappointed that I didn't learn about Moundville in high school. This is just such an incredible history, and I really hope that I can encourage people to learn more about it in the rest of my life. So thank you.
And Lauren, what do you hope that people take away from your project and your experience?
We're really hoping that the pavilion would bring people in, but we don't want it to be the destination. So I think kind of what we all have been saying and what we all think is that there's so much to do and see there. So we really just want the space to be something that's usable, but also brings people in to be able to experience it. And we've been incredibly fortunate working with the people that we've worked with, and the vision and the passion that they have for the park with Alex and John and you, Rebecca, too. I mean, getting to know you and all of your big plans are just really exciting. So I'd say just keep the park on your radar, because you all have a lot going on and a lot of really great ideas. And we're excited that we were a part of it, but we're also just really excited to see where you guys go next and what you do next.
And Alex, so what is this experience working with all these ladies? What do you at Moundville, from a Moundville perspective, what do you take away from the project?
Well, I think I said it earlier. It's a completely different way of seeing an archaeological site, of seeing the park itself in a unique context. Really, it's been eye-opening in so many different ways that we haven't thought about. Not just how to see the park, but how to use the park and how to provide a better visitor experience. We've really learned a lot from that, and that's what we'll take moving forward. This pavilion is an important structure, but the contributions they've made to the park will last, at least for as long as I'm here and John's here, and we take some of these visions and make them a reality. And we hope we can do that with future Real Studio students as well. So that's been really, really powerful for me I always say this to them, as a former pre-architecture student who decided this was not something I could do. I have been fascinated with the process and really, engaged in how they look at spaces differently. I think it's been really important for us as a park to see.
Well, I learned something about Dr. Benitez today that I didn't know, that you were maybe going to pursue architecture. We're going to have to dig a little into that for another time.
No, it's not a good history. No.
We're gonna have to dig into that. I will remember that. Well, if anybody would like to support what these Rural Studio architects are doing and the Moundville project, you can go to ruralstudio.org/give and support what they do. I guess we can wrap it up. So for this Museums from Your Home live stream, I think this is going to do it. We're almost at time. But just as a reminder, we're doing this every weekday, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And each day is going to feature a different aspect of UA museums. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we'll actually be going over to the Gorgas House Museum and the Mildred Westervelt Winter Transportation Museum to talk about some history. And if you want to support what we're doing as well, you can do that through give.ua.edu/museums. That's a way to support UA museums and what we're doing. I guess I would also like to promote the museums.ua.edu/museums from your home website. If you go to that link, it will give you all the information about what we're doing during this time of the COVID-19 situation. That link will have links to all of our live streams. We have archived live streams there. So if you missed anything, you can go back and rewatch them there. You can also find links to Discovering Alabama's educational resources that they have. They have free episodes and teacher guides. The Alabama Museum of Natural History also has a teacher's corner. So if you've got little ones, or if you find yourself homeschooling now, those are great resources that you can find there. And all of those things are linked at the museums.ua.edu/museums from your home. So that's going to be your one-stop shop for everything that we are doing through UA Museums at this time. So ladies, thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun to pick your brains and learn more about this project. And thank you to Dr. Benitez and John. I know he's back there somewhere. So thank you to everybody at Moundville. for letting us hang out together for this Moundville Monday. And so I think that's going to do it for us here. So thank you for visiting UA Museums from your home. I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rebecca.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.